Jared again here from Eaglerise Farm. I get lots of questions about revegetating. How do you do it? How do you select the plants? How do you plant them? Where do you plant them? And in conventionally, it's much simpler. You see it on farms all around the country where people rip straight lines and they'll spray along the rip line and then they'll plant their trees into the rip line. What we do here at Eaglerise Farm is we don't revegetate. I don't look at it like that. What The way I look at it is I'm creating habitat, and that's really what we're trying to do. So just by zeroing in on the overall task of what has to happen, you get a completely different design. So I thought I'd show you how I've tried to revegetate some of my areas in a diagrammatic way. The first thing that I really look at is a revegetation guide. Now, to me, this is critical because this shows us what grew in this area before Europeans came to this country. It shows that the plants that have adapted over $60,000 of menagerie land management through burning and just the general lifestyle. So you need to find your local revegetation guide. Now, if you're in Australia, I'd suggest you go to Landcare and try and find a list of locally native plants. In other parts of the world, you just need to find what would normally grow there. This is important because these plants have evolved in conjunction with the ecosystem. So there's little insects and birds that their mouth parts, their tongue is long enough and developed in conjunction with the flowers on these trees for pollination and collecting nectar, and it's a whole system. So you can't expect the same tree to be exactly the same if it's 1,000 kilometres away. Taxonomically, it may be the same, but from the ecology, there could be little differences. So this is the revegetation guide. And from here, what I've done is produce some slides to try and show you how I've developed it. So this first slide shows just a bare drainage line. Our contours tend to be about 10 meters. So there's a bit of slope on this example, and it's not a permanent drainage line. It'll flow for 6 months a year when we have rain. So you can see the contours in this next slide, and that shows how steep it is. The, the first plant I like to plant when I'm creating habitat is a tea tree. It's a Leptospermum species. The tea tree is a great shrub. It's a medium-sized shrub, and it really likes the wet areas. And so you can see I walk along the drainage line planting them. And I tend to plant them in little clumps because what I love doing is walking along these revegetated habitat areas and seeing little families of superb variants flitting from tea tree to tea tree. Another plant that likes to grow in these wet conditions is the silver wattle. This is a medium tree and it handles the wet and damp conditions really well. As it gets older, it dies out. It's not particularly a long-lived plant, but the dead branches it leaves provides great habitat for the little birds again, and it forms dense thickets. So there's really great bird life in these little thickets. This next slide just shows the rocks. I thought I'd put some rocks in the landscape so you give a bit of variation, so we can plant some other plants. Now we have the yellow box. To me, the yellow box is sort of the king of the trees. It's just one of those really nice trees. It's a large tree, but it grows best on the better soils that are well drained. It forms in really important tree hollows for larger birds and some of the mammals. We're trying to entice sugar gliders back to the farm, and as our trees grow and the branches fall off, they create hollows, and that'll be homes for little gliders and possums. And it also provides a really good roost for the birds of prey. Birds of prey like to be up high so they can see what feed there is. And so as the yellow box grows, it really produces that. Another plant we have is the casuarina species. There's about 17 that are native to Australia, and these handle drier, rockier areas. And the little cones, like miniature pine cones that the casuarina produces, is great food for the cockatoos. They love to get in there and crack them open. Back to the waterways, we have Phragmites. That's a tall, grassy plant, and it will fill the waterway. It's great habit for birds such as the reed warbler, and the habitat forms really thick, dense foliage, and it's great for lots of little birds, but also animals that eat those little birds, like snakes. Another great little plant we have is a sticky everlasting, or paper daisies is another term for them. And the flowers are pollinated by insects and provide food for the native butterflies. Every time a plant provides pollen and nectar for insects, then it's providing insects for insect-eating birds. So the paper daisies I like putting in little areas to create their own little microclimate. A common red gum on the farm here is the tumbledown gum. And it's a multi-stemming style of tree. It's a medium, and it's often called the hill red gum. The multi-stemming provides a range of lower type tree canopies. And they can handle drier and shallower soils as well. And in the right season, it's a profuse flowerer, and we've had seasons here where the hills look cream with all the tumbled down gum. It's one of our most dominant species. By far, probably the most dominant in the area is the Blakei, the hill red gum. These grow to about 20 metres, and again provide habitat for small upper canopy birds such as the pardalote. Sometimes there's an open canopy style growth habit, and it's suitable for perching sites of birds of prey as well. We have a few white box, and that white box has a typical rough bark on the base of its short, straight trunk with a smooth white bark above. And it sort of grows to a small to medium tree up to about 25 metres. And that extends, the canopy extends from lower right up into the upper canopy. It was previously dominant in the ecosystem, but now it's actually listed as critically endangered in a lot of communities. Another real popular plant for me is the paradoxa, the kangaroo thorn. It provides really valuable habitat for birds and small mammals. The nature of the dense foliage provides great protection if there's any feral cats, for instance. It grows to a dome shape of about 3 metres. It can provide harbour for rabbits, which is a bit of a downside, but in little clumps, you can sit there and see numerous little birds flying around. So it's all about creating habitat. We also have blackwood. That's another acacia, and that's a medium-sized tree. And it offers all the benefits of the acacia species, which are also legumes, so that there's many flowers for the insects. One of the really good native grasses we have is the weeping grass. That's Mycalina diploides. It's low growing, and it's a tufted perennial, but it's spread by seeds and short rhizomes. And the dense swards can cover quite large areas. It's really well adapted to higher rainfall areas, but also it can tolerate cold. And again, because it provides seeds for seed-eating birds and also any grazing mammals. So it's a really nice. It's a nice coloured green, and it just fits in with the environment. A lot of the grasses will develop as we lock livestock out of these areas. So we're providing habitat for native animals, and the livestock become a management tool. Another large tree in our ecosystem here is a red stringy bark. It's a medium-sized tree. It goes to about 35 metres. Grows on our better soils and often in conjunction with white box. So we have a white box red stringy bark community. It's one of the dominant trees in our existing landscape, and it survived where some of the other trees would have been logged. And it provides really good ecological functions as the system succeeds to an increasing climax community. It's one of the dominant, larger trees we have. The coarse, stringy bark is often used for nesting materials for birds and mammals, and the flowers are another really important nectar source for birds, gliders, moths, butterflies, a whole range of other insects. So again, it attracts seed and insect-eating birds. And it's just great to see the birds flying through the canopies. Another acacia we have is a red stem wattle. It's sort of a small tree or really an upright shrub that grows to about 5 metres. And again, it's a valuable pollen source for a whole range of insects. It often grows in the drier soils, but can tolerate some uh, inundation at times. Another eucalypt we have is the red box. Again, it's usually found on light, shallow soils, which you'll see on some of the slopes and the ridges. It grows to about 20 metres and provides nectar for a whole range of birds and insects, therefore attracts insect-eating birds again. It's really good. It creates valuable hollows for nesting and also the refuge sites for birds and mammals. The carrajong is another tree. It grows to about 20 metres and it really has a really dense crown. Um, and so that provides a different sort of microclimate for a whole range of birds. And it produces a lot of nectar for the birds and insects again. Another acacia is a varnish wattle. And that's sort of a weeping shrub, is one way to explain it. It grows to about 4 metres and produces pollen and seeds for birds and insects. So you can see a trend coming through with these plant species and the way we've planted them to get that diverse plant density and a range of plants. The common Cassinia is grows into an erect open shrub, and again it grows on the poorer soils, which is what we've got here. So the revegetation guide we looked at earlier really fits in with what I observe on the farm. Cassinia also provides really good cover and refuge for small birds, and it grows so well. It's a really good pioneer species. So you can see a lot of these species we're putting in are providing a lot of dense cover for small birds. And as the trees grow, then the woodland birds will migrate in as well. Another shrub we have is the sticky hopbush. It grows, it's sort of a rector spreading type shrub, grows from 1.5 to up to 4 metres. It produces real hardy flowers through spring and summer. It prefers well drained, full sun areas, but it can tolerate the dry and it can handle a bit of frost. So we planted it in our rocky, sandy soils. Another uh, plant we have is a sweet wisteria. It's a large thorny shrub or a small tree. It can grow up to 9 metres and provides great refuge and nesting sites for small birds. And the flowers provide a whole range of attractions for the insects again. One of the colourful plants we have is the Hardenbergia or the happy wanderer. There's lots of common names for this one. It produces not lovely little violet type flowers. It's a fast growing native climber. The stems can sort of grow up to 2 meters long, and it has a lot of flowers from August, November. It, it prefers the open forests and woodlands in full sun in well drained soils. So that's why we planted around the rocky areas. It's moderately frost tolerant, and being a member of the Fabaceae family, it's a legume. It's got good flowers and seeds for the small birds again. Another one we have is the fringe myrtle. It's a prostrate shrub, grows to about a metre, and produces a lovely aromatic foliage with white and pink type flowers. It's quite pretty. It needs moist, well drained soils. Another eucalypt is the longleaf box. It's got a short trunk. It's a medium tree. It grows to about 15 metres, and it flowers in autumn, winter. It prefers the dry, shallow soils in the rocky areas, and you often see it in ecosystem with red stringy bark. The longleaf box flowers are really important nectar source for, again, birds, gliders, moths, butterflies, a whole range of insects, and so therefore it's going to attract the seed and insect-eating birds. So there's all these layers that are happening in the ecosystem. Hickory wattle is another one that we have, and it's a dense shrub to a small tree, grows to about 8 metres. It flowers in September, February, and again, mostly on rocky habitats. It's a good food plant for caterpillars of native butterflies and moths, and in turn, they attract more insect-eating birds. The last one we have, I've included it, is the cherry ballard. We don't have any on the farm, and we probably it'd be a great step forward if any appeared. It's semi-parasitic. The roots attached to its host plant, and there's a whole range of hosts for it. It grows about 8 metres, and the fruit is edible. And so they sort of attract echidnas, possums, foxes, unfortunately, any kangaroos and wallabies, and the whole range of the woodland birds like the white-winged choughs and the bronze-winged pigeons. So it's really interesting because it creates a microclimate of its own. It reduces soil temperature, it increases soil moisture, it concentrates nutrients in the soil beneath the canopies, and it sort of alters the understory vegetation. So it provides habitat for a whole range of butterflies and moths. So I hope that clears it up, and we'll explain a bit more later.